you might be in a place where you feel like people might listen to you when you're talking or telling a story, but they're not really going to remember who you are or what your story is, or they're not going to actually take action. That is actually a sign of not having an anchor story. What you're building isn't just a brand, it's the work and story God trusted you to carry. Welcome to Heard in Heaven. I'm Ray Ireland, best-selling author, global speaker, and co-founder of Evolve Podcasting, where our clients have reached over 3 million downloads. This show is where Holy Spirit revelation meets CEO execution. So your message doesn't just inspire, it multiplies. It's time to speak with fire, shake the earth, and be heard in heaven. This episode is going to be so good because we're going to be diving into how to find your anchor story and really what an anchor story even is. You are not missing your message. You do not need to keep searching and finding it. It honestly is something that you're already carrying and probably already talking about. There's already this breakthrough moment that has happened within you, and heaven just wants to amplify it. Heaven wants to use that anchor story and help you share it with others so that way it helps others. So what we're going to do today, it is time. We are going to find it, we are going to name it, and we are going to use it to help build your platform. All right? I have my sparkly jacket on today. I know if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see me, but I just wanted to paint the picture of the energy that we're bringing today, because we have gone deep and we have talked about a lot of the reasons why not to go into launching something, speaking out, sharing a podcast, right? We've really covered a lot in this show already. But today I wanted to really let this be a declaration that we are now stepping forward. We are saying yes to God and we are taking the action. So this is going to be a very practical episode. I know you're going to love it. You're going to walk away with so much and be able to put it right into action. So you know that you have something powerful to share, right? But when it's time to actually maybe speaking or sharing, that's when you start doubting yourself, right? You might freeze. You might wonder, well, where do I even start? Which story should I tell? I have so many, but does it even matter for me to tell that one? Should I even say it out loud? What is the reason, right? So it's okay. If you have been feeling like your story is either too messy, too ordinary, or too unfinished, you are in the right place. Because let's face it, the best stories that you hear actually usually are unfinished. That's what's so cool about even Jesus' story is we have the story that he has for us, and then we have Acts, and we get to see it lived and breathed, right? So don't worry about it, right? If you don't know how to make your message really stick and you're unsure of, is this message really going to land with my audience? If you're feeling even maybe scattered all over the place, unsure of how to position yourself, how to use your voice, what authority is this going to actually give me? Do I even want authority in this area, right? All of these questions, again, you're in the right place. I want to share, there have been certain anchor stories that I've used throughout my time of being in online business. And this is a really cool thing that I want you to think about, because you might also be in a transition of transitioning from one anchor story to the other. There might be something that you have been talking about and you have been sharing on, and it connected to your mission and your message, and it might be feeling stale. I know I've talked to so many people that are in this season right now. So if that's you, let this be a permission slip to let that story go. I know it has served, and I know it has served others, but maybe there's a new season coming to life, a new story that's being brought to life. So for example, I had my anchor story really be my near-death car accident. That was an anchor story for so many things and so many reasons, because it felt like such an intense experience to have. I knew God had blessed me with saying that he wanted me to share about that experience to help and serve others. And I also knew that it was starting to just feel a little stale and really disconnected from what I was doing currently. And here's the thing. It wasn't actually disconnected to what I was doing currently at all. I can still very easily speak on this, but God actually wanted to just bring me a new, fresh experience that I could speak so clearly to. And Guess what that experience was? It was breaking my leg. So I'm actually going to be sharing my anchor story in the next episode. It's going to be really powerful for you to see how I tie my anchor story into everything that I'm doing. But for now, before I go into actually sharing the story, I wanted to break it down so I can really walk you guys through finding your own anchor story and understanding how you can then present it later on. Cool? Sounds good? I told you, we're shaking things up. This is a different episode than what we've been doing. And I promised you at the beginning, this was going to be spirit meets strategy. Like, we are going all in. Everything's on the table. We're talking about it all because why not? That's the way I like to do it. Again, if you don't have an anchor story that you're playing with, you might be feeling like you have a little bit of like a slippery fish message. Here's what I mean by that. One day you go out to a networking event and you tell story A. Then the next day on social media, you tell story B. Then when you get invited to speak on stage, you rack your brain and you're like, well, I guess I'll tell story C now. And you're kind of all over the place, right? Now, you might be thinking, well, Ray, isn't that like basically what a podcast is? Aren't you telling a whole bunch of different stories? Like, that would be totally boring if you had only one story and you repeated it over and over again. And yeah, you're right. But there's such a deeper purpose for having an anchor story because it's anchoring you deep into the sea, right? No, but it is deep, right? The reason why you want to have an anchor story is it will help you connect emotionally to your audience and create themes and values that can then be responded to within the other stories that you talk about and that you share about. You might be in a place where you feel like people might listen to you when you're talking or telling a story, but they're not really going to remember who you are or what your story is, or they're not going to actually take action. That is actually a sign of not having an anchor story. You might also feel like you might be missing some of the credibility that could be getting connected, that could be getting built up when you're connecting with your audience. You might be also feeling a little bit of the lack of emotional connection, because if you're popping around all these different stories, it's kind of like speed dating. Like, okay, that's fun, but you're not able to actually build a relationship and create this connection where you're building trust and you're guiding people. So again, just wanted to kind of point out a few versions of what it would look like if you don't have an anchor story. And maybe you think you have an anchor story, but you're still experiencing those. Well, then you're in the right place. Let's discover what your anchor story is. The anchor story should be a message that is so unforgettable. It locks you, your face, and your voice into a message that resonates with the listener or the audience. It gives whoever is on the other side of receiving your anchor story embodied proof around the message that you went through. And that's really what we're all looking for, especially in our trust recession. I think I'll do another episode on that. I'm reminding myself to do it right now because that is so key. And that's why we love podcasting and why so many of our people that do launch podcasts with us, they see big things shift and change in their businesses because people are craving trust. And so when you are having an anchor story be the foundation to every other story you share and create a stable, safe ground where when someone comes to you, they know what to expect, and yet you can still give them more by sprinkling all the other stories in. That is what is going to build up trust and safety. And again, aren't we all looking for that? I am way more likely to give money and say yes to someone who is inviting me into something when I know that they provide both trust and safety, right? All right, how to find your anchor story. Let's dive in. So here are some simple, easy steps that you can use. Number one, identify the before and after moment. So usually it's something big that shifted, that happened, that transformed. Maybe it was spiritually, emotionally, physically, practically, right? But there's this thing that happened before, and there was a very clear after. It's something, this before and after should be something that you could never unsee, right? You could never not like unknow about it, right? It's something that is just so black and white. So that's what you want to find for your anchor story. You want to find also in the anchor story, there should be this decision, a moment or a decision of surrender, right? That's something that we all can relate to. And really, when you are talking about surrender, I really feel like that is what opens up the space for other people to surrender, right? And to like hear God more clearly and to create a little bit of space. If you come out of the gate with your anchor story and you're like, I know everything now and I did every right move and this is why I found the anchor story, like it's just not going to land. So if that is your anchor story, we got to find you a new one. There's definitely got to be this human connection where there's a point of you not knowing what's next, being in the messy, not having control, not having the vision, right? And yet surrendering it all. So that can look, I can say that in a few different ways, but I think you guys get my gist. Just don't be totally perfect. That is so boring, especially in your anchor story. We're going to talk about branding and messaging more in this show, but especially in your anchor story, be your most real, raw, unfiltered, wild, wacky you. The you that is who you are when you're with your best friend that you haven't seen in like a year and you're catching up with them. Like that is the energy and the level of enthusiasm and realness that I want you to bring to the table. Okay? Challenge on. So also when you're going into your anchor story, it's so much better. It's so much juicier when you focus on the internal breakthrough as compared to the external breakthrough. Well, why? Don't we all want external breakthroughs? We want to see the fruit, right? We want to see what actually happens in our life. Yes, that is totally true. But the thing that happens first is that internal shift. And that is what you're actually opening the conversation with to create connection. When you share what was happening on the inside, not just what everyone was seeing on the outside, but when you open up and you share so vulnerably, that creates such a, again, safe space for others to do the same. It's not about what you achieved. It is way more about what transformed inside of you. And oh my gosh, I'm getting so many ideas of all these episodes that I want to record for you guys because I'm just so in love with these concepts. But even when it comes to sales, yes, we do need to land and speak about the results and what is happening and where you're taking someone, right? Like instead of talking about the airplane that they're going to be on, which is usually like not that fancy, and the airports that they need to stand in the lines with and the long waits and all of the stuff being in tiny seats, and then you get to Hawaii, you don't sell the journey, right, to the trip. You sell the final destination, okay? But the final destination must also outline and speak to what happened on the inside, right? What actually transformed? Who did you become through your anchor story? So again, if you don't have that in your anchor story, you got to highlight it. You got to pull it out and bring it to the surface. And then the last thing that I want to say is you want to connect your anchor story to the greater mission of what you're doing. So you want your anchor story to really reveal the why behind your mission before you say the why behind your mission. It is so much more impactful to share a story. Again, I'm going to do a whole episode on my anchor story in the next episode, so you'll be able to see this played out, right? But it's so much more powerful to share a story about my why instead of just saying my 10-word why statement. Ding, 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 ding. I feel like that just threw me back into like some conferences that I was sitting inside for so many days and I just wanted to be done. I'm like, here's my 10-sentence why thing. Okay, that is so boring, right? I mean, it's going to be applicable for some places, but we're talking about storytelling and connection and brand building, and this is your anchor story. So you want to really let your story speak for itself. It's about using someone's imagination and letting them actually experience their own transformation within your story. Okay? It's so cool how this works out. So you want to think about, like, what does my story prove? If I have an anchor story that is connecting to this greater mission that I have, actually, when I'm speaking it, what is it proving that XYZ is true? What is it supporting in terms of what needs to happen for this transformation to be had, right? These are some things you can really start to think about. Anchor stories are really less about, like, look at my success and like where I came from, and way more about, like, no, here's the dots and the things that happened and the things that I chose along the way. And even when it didn't make sense, and this is the anchor story that led me to now being here, right? The emphasis is way more on the beginning of the story. And basically, you as the anchor storyteller, you're looking back and connecting the dots for the listener. Because remember, you're speaking to someone that is in following the dots, right? They're like, wait, what is my next dot? So as you share your anchor story, you're able to backtrack and show them that it does all get connected and that it does make sense at the end. But you don't want to pretend like you knew it the whole time, right? So you might be carrying an anchor story already. You probably are. Actually, let's just say you have your anchor story. I believe you do. You wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't. So, it's not waiting to be had, right? It's not waiting to be built. It's actually, you just need to name it and really uncover these moments that I just brought up to the surface, right? That you get to take some time to explore, right? These are deep things. It's not just like, oh, where did it happen? Who was there? Like, what were you feeling? No, there's deeper questions here, right? So today, can you take 10 minutes to just journal this moment? Journal out your anchor story. Start playing with me. Like, get active. This is not a passive podcast, even though I know I can't see you right now, but I feel you. I know you're there. So this is an active podcast. Take 10 minutes. Find what your anchor story is. Write it down. Anchor it down so that way you can use it and just really remind yourself that this is the story that heaven wants you to tell. This is the story that God is asking you to tell, right? And of course, ask him. Get that confirmation, okay? The anchor story is not really just for you. It's really meant to move people, right? And maybe there's a greater plan even that God has with you sharing your anchor story. So, when you are wanting to build a podcast around real connection, or build your social media, or launch something, or go speak on stages, you want your audience to grow, right? And it's not going to grow from you just shouting louder, right? That's not what audience growth looks like. It's actually because you resonated deeper with your listeners. So if you want to get some real momentum going, and you're someone thinking like, okay, I'm so ready to do this podcast thing. This is really exciting. I'm seeing the pieces come together. I actually have a new freebie for you guys, and it was a request from someone all around how to hit your first 1,000 podcast downloads. I am so stoked on this resource because I wish I had it a long time ago. Inside, I'm going to walk you guys through just the exact strategies that you need to take to hit that first 1,000 podcast downloads. I want you to imagine being in a room. This is going to be a big room with 1,000 people. That's a lot of lives you're being able to talk to in such an intimate way. So I feel like this freebie is really sacred in that way. And I know that you will take it in your hands with that same sacredness. Just remember, you already are carrying a very powerful story. We just need to anchor it down. It's not about feeling more ready. It's not about having a new experience. It's really just about anchoring your story, speaking with fire, and shaking the earth. That is what we're here, and that's what we're doing. So if you're ready to grow that podcast platform, go to the show notes, download the freebie around how to hit your first 1,000 podcast downloads, and let's build something that lasts. I'll see you in the next episode. Your voice carries weight, not just for today, but for eternity. If this episode stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, let it ripple. If you're ready to launch a platform that amplifies your message and multiplies your impact, I'm here to help. Start your journey with the link in the show notes down below. Subscribe, leave a review, and remember, when you speak with fire, you don't just shake the earth, you echo in heaven.